absolutely no one's going to be surprised at my amazing credit score. When you make a lot of money, it's not that hard to have an excellent credit score, as you can see here. But what you don't realize is this is actually not my credit score. In fact, this is my actual credit score. I kid you not, this is not clickbait. This is legit my credit score. Couple of things to keep in mind. My debt to income ratio, I think, is 21%, if not lower. All my accounts are up to date. I'm not in collections. And in fact, a majority of my life, I have been debt-free and I've been living a cash lifestyle. Let's actually dig a little deeper. I'm gonna absolutely blow your mind, as my mind was blown. A lot of misconceptions out there. I always thought that people with bad credit were people who didn't know how to handle their money. They were living above their means. All kinds of negative things beyond just the score itself. Little did I know that you can actually have a very bad score. In fact, in the beginning of this year, my score was about 580 or something. 580 with no collections. Yeah, I'm gonna blow your mind. Just stay with me. So these are some of my credit card balances, and this is my credit for this year or last year. So you can see the Equifax is much lower, 626. Beginning of the year it was 631. You can see this one was at 636, bumped it up to 660, stayed steady for a little while and started falling back. So here is the truth of the matter. This is the reason why things are the way they are. And I'm sure many of you, your minds are going to be blown, because look at all that green. Payment history, 100%. Credit card usage, 13%. Normally it's like 4% or 0. Derogatory marks, 0. Now those are all high impacts. High impact are all green. Excellent. All right, Bill and Ted. Excellent. Okay. Credit age. Whoa. That's a medium impact though, but still. Credit age, 7 months. Now I know many people think I'm younger than I am, but I am over 40. How is an over 40 guy only has 7 months of credit history? How is that possible? 13 total accounts, 7 hard inquiries. So one of the big factors here, from my understanding, is the credit age. And let me explain why the credit age looks the way it looks. This is real. This is not some Photoshop or something. Let me tell you a little story. So there was an individual who was making a couple $1 million a year and was trying to finance a $400,000 to $500,000 car. So you're making $2 million a year and you're trying to finance a $400,000 to $500,000 car. That should be super easy. Well, unfortunately, this person was actually declined and unable to actually get that loan, despite of the fact that they had tons of money. It would have been an easy thing for them to pay off. So credit is not what a lot of you guys think it is. Like the credit system, the credit bureaus, there's a lot of sneaky stuff going, a lot of dirty stuff. It's not just about you're good with your money, you have a good credit. You're bad with your money, you have bad credit. No, a little bit more complicated than that, and I'll be explaining more in future videos. But now back to my 7-month credit history. Why? Oh, why? I don't use credit, and I think a lot of people won't understand that because we're living in a debt-based society. In today's world, a lot of people just use credit like it's nobody's business. They don't even think about it. It's the normal thing. Live beyond your means and just put it on the credit, and that's how they lock you in. I work in the banking industry, and I will tell you straight up, a lot of these banks are straight up parasites. They are basically financially enslaving a vast majority of the population, in my opinion. Now, into my defense, I work in investment banking, so we're dealing in millions and billions, hundreds of millions and billions. Billion a day is not an unusual day for me, but I'm not dealing in retail, so I don't deal with credit cards and things like that. So that's my defense, and I'm sticking with it. But I'm still in banking, so technically it is my industry that contains all these parasites. But in the retail world, there's absolutely a lot of parasites, and I'll be doing some other videos exposing some of the nonsense that they do. It's absolutely ridiculous. The fees, I mean, it's insane, the stuff that they do. And they will tell you some ridiculous things straight to your face. And it's one of those many things, just like mainstream media, where we've been raised to sort of respect these quote unquote authority figures. So, it's somebody working for some big bank, Bank of America or whatever it is. And you go to the bank and trying to get a loan or whatever it is. And they're telling you stuff and no, this is too, and you need to get your ratio. And you don't even know what they're talking about. They got some fancy suit on and, you sort of just, it kind of makes you, I know a lot of people feel like intimidated, and they probably feel like, oh, they're right. They're telling me, I should have done this. I should have done that. I'll give you a prime example. So you have an account and you fall behind on your bills, and you are getting sort of an attitude from whoever it is that you owe money from, whichever bank or whatever it is. And they make you feel like, you're worthless. Pay your bills, dummy. But little do you know that they are making so much money off of you. A lot of people don't even realize that. When you're late, they get to get more money from you because they charge you the fees, man. And then worst case scenario, you totally bail on your debts. They sell it. And then the next level of the nonsense is the debt collectors who, and unfortunately, that's a story for another day. I had an awesome experience working as a debt collector myself for like 2 weeks. That was an insane experience. My journey was never a straight line. I certainly have been through some struggles in my life. I've done very, very well, but I've also had some times where I went through struggle. I mean, I started in struggle for sure. It didn't come from money. I had to work my way up. I always tell the story about times that I never forgot about, where I go in a store, see a magazine, I want to buy it, it's $4.25, and I sit there and think to myself, do I really need to buy this magazine? Right? That's the kind of lifestyle. I was paying $5.75 or $5.25 a month living in East Boston, which is not the best neighborhood. I don't know how it is now, but back then it was not a good neighborhood, but that's what I could afford. I was making less than $20,000 a year. So I know what it is to not be able to pay your bills, to fall behind on bills. I know what it is to be facing potential eviction, to have to sell your things, and not just from a starting up perspective. I've got to the point where I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. I started from the bottom and then doing really well, making a ton of money, and then go through a very difficult time where it's an embarrassing thing to go, like, you had this high level position and now you are just working a regular job that's barely enough to pay your bills. You are doing the noodles thing, and you're thinking in the mindset of, what kind of food can I stock up on that's cheap while I have money, get it now, to kind of stock up on food. You're contemplating whether you should try to get on food stamps or whatever it is. Like, I have been in situations where things have gotten that bad. And again, not just in the beginning, that was something that I've actually experienced after achieving a good level of success. So I've been through it all, and we'll share more about that in future episodes. But let's get back to the topic here of this craziness with the 7 months. So I come from a different world, a different culture. I was born in Jamaica, and I think a lot of this is sort of a Caribbean mindset, old school, old fashioned. And so the culture that I come from, and it's not just culture in terms of this is a Jamaican thing, I'm sure a lot of it is, but the rest of it is family thing. But debt is the devil. So anti-loan, anti-credit cards, and a philosophy of living under your means. Save, save, save. Wear the same pants for 10 plus years. Only a few pairs of shoes. Don't concern yourself with name brand. Don't feel any shame going to any discount stores. Always try to negotiate prices down. Always look for sales. Generic brands are your friends. Just to give you an example, when I started out working in finance, I got to the point where I was making some good money, and most of my coworkers, I'm sure, were rocking Beamers and Benzes and things like that. And I went out there and I got me a car that was $10,000, $12,000. It was actually the closest thing to a normal car that I ever purchased. Was my first car. It was a Toyota Celica, and I absolutely love that car. Little 4-cylinder, manual, not automatic. I had Mercedes-Benz, BMW money, but instead I got myself a used Toyota Celica, $10,000, $12,000, and I got a usual, probably like a 5-year loan. I paid it off in a year or two. So now I'm driving around in a car super fuel efficient, and insurance is super cheap. I got no note, and therefore, and this is really what started it, I was making more money than my colleagues, right? Because they were making Ben's money, but they were spending Ben's money. So therefore, I was growing more money faster than them because I was able to conserve more of my income by not spending as much as them. They're name brand this, name brand that, fancy car, high insurance, more fuel. Oh, the irony when you look at what I've done since then. But make a lot more money now than I did back then. So there is that. That is the picture of me in my first, I would say first 5 years of my professional career. So I was very junior, doing well, but still very junior. So I was taking my time building up my wealth first before I started splurging too much. And even now, I still don't really splurge because I still to this day live well under my means. So that's the background that I'm coming from. And with that mentality, I bought a couple cars, same kind of thing, cars that I could afford. Again, the only sort of normal car was the Celica, but still, even when I got into higher end performance cars, they were still well under my means. Really nice cars, but still well under my means. So paying off loans in a year or two. So not really building up much of a history. So I'm buying stuff cash. So in those situations when I'm starting out, I would put a lot of money down on a car that doesn't cost that much. And then in the future, I started basically buying cars cash. I started living cash. So I would use my debit cards all the time. And if I didn't have the money for something, I didn't get it. And that's how I lived most of my life. And there was a point where I had like one credit card through one of the military credit unions, and that was it. I had one credit card and I hardly used it, and they kept increasing my limit and increasing it. I just didn't really use it, didn't really need it. What do I need it for? And that was my mentality. Anti-debt, anti-credit. I didn't even like monthly anything. I didn't have cable TV. I got myself an HD antenna, right? That's the mentality, like real conservative. The only time I started spending money was when I started to embrace my love and passion of cars. So that's where the money was getting spent. But clothes, I certainly took pride in how I looked, but you don't need to spend a lot of money to look good. You can go to discount stores that'll sell things from like last season or something like that, or overstocks, or those things that are not name brand, but they look good. But it got to a period of time where I got really extreme, to where I probably went 10 to 15 years without any credit cards. 10 to 15 years, no credit cards. Paying everything cash. And the reason I did that is because, as you guys suspected, I'm a major drug dealer, and that's how I pay for all these cars and jets and yachts and all the stuff. It's paid for with drug money. It is not. Anyway, so here we are, 2020, and with all the things that I've bought, all the things that I've done, I got 7 months of credit history. And the only reason I even have that is because I got to the point where I was looking at making some major investments, major acquisitions. I'm looking at some big ticket items, to the point where the idea of going in and paying cash and that kind of stuff didn't really make any sense. So I started looking at the idea of maybe I might be okay with some loans, some light loans in terms of the monthly payments, but some loans nonetheless. So when I started looking at that, I started looking at my credit, because I knew credit's a big part of that. And I was shocked to find out that me paying all my debts, living debt-free, living a cash lifestyle, no one's calling my phone or none of that stuff. I thought I would have had really good credit, good income, no debt, right? When I looked at my credit, I saw the credit was like a 550 or 580 or something like that. I was like, what? Anyway, long story short, I did a lot of investigating and learning about how credit actually works. And I realized the error in my ways. And the short story, and I'll do more videos talking about credit and how you guys can increase your credit and other things of that nature. But the short version is, your credit score is sort of an assessment of your credit worthiness. So if you're not actually using credit, then it's hard for them to give you an actual score. Because by using credit, there's your opportunity to demonstrate that how responsible you are, or how good you are at managing credit. But again, if you don't use credit, then you don't get to demonstrate your finesse in that area. That's me. Perfectly capable of managing my money. In fact, I think I'm very good at managing my money. I mean, I remember one of the first time talking to my financial advisor and at the bank, and you know, they looked at my account and they saw, you know, how much I had in savings and how much I was saving every month, and it was kind of like a shock to them. And I've had these moments many different times. I have had them in the past when I go to a dealership with a lot of cash in hand, and you know, they're just like shocked, and they talk about people coming in trying to do zero down, and they're trying to buy a $50,000 car with $2,000 down, and then I come in with some real cash, and they're just like shocked. So from my investigating about how this stuff really works, realizing the error of my ways, I realized that I needed to start building credit fast. Unless you got that Bill Gates money, the really big items, you're just not going to be able to pay cash. Even there's a limit to that. And it's not even a matter of, the problem comes in before you actually run out of cash. Meaning, let's say you have $10 million in the bank. The problem comes in before you get to the point of spending $10 million, way before that. I would say, if you've got $10 million in the bank, and that's an isolated fact. I don't know what else you got going on in terms of your debt, income, whatever. But if you got $10 million in the bank, I would say, generally speaking, the first issue comes in when you're looking at spending. I would say even 40%. 40% of your liquid cash to dump into something. I mean, it really depends on what you're dumping it into. Maybe it's a major investment that's going to have a return on your investment. But generally speaking, let's say you were going to spend 40% of your money on a car. That's a little iffy. So, and the way I look at it is, even realizing now the importance of using credit, even if you don't have to, cash is ultimately king. And although I generally have a lot of my wealth tied into assets, and notice I say assets, not liabilities, I don't like to throw too much cash into something that is not going to benefit me financially. For example, instead of me spending $400,000 on a Lamborghini Aventador that's going to cost me a ton of money in insurance and gas and maintenance, I'd rather, for example, put down $200,000 and finance the rest. So I have $400,000 in the bank. I give half of that to another bank, and for that, they give me a Lamborghini Aventador for half price, right? I get a $400,000 Lamborghini for $200,000. The cost of doing this, whatever the interest rate on the loan is. So let's say it's 3.8%. So I'm paying, or rather that $200,000 that I borrowed is costing me this 3.8%. So that loan has my money being decreased by that percentage. But the magic happens with what I do with the rest of the money. Again, instead of throwing all of that $400,000 into a car, I only threw half the money, so I have $200,000 left. This is just an example. I would never suggest you doing exactly what I'm talking about. But take the $200,000 and put it into a mutual fund. And let's say that mutual fund has a average rate of return of 7%, 8%, 9%. So you see how the math works. So you split your money in two. Half of it went to the car, and as a result, it's losing value by 3.8%. But the other half went into a mutual fund let's just round it out and say that's bringing in 7%. So the overall effect is my money, and therefore my wealth, is growing in this scenario by 3.2%. Half my money is gaining 7%, the other half is losing 3.8%. The net result is 3.2% growth. That's the net result. Again, compare that to, before I go there, of course, even in this scenario, I'm still paying and the gas. But that's always the case, right? That's a fixed cost. So whether I pay for the car in full, in cash, or I finance half of the cost of the car, I'm going to have the same expenses in terms of the insurance, maintenance, gas. But in one scenario, I'm only going in one direction, and that's down. See the difference? You pay $400,000 cash for Lamborghini Aventador, and then your money only goes down. Maintenance, gas, insurance. But if you do the financing route, your money can have a net positive effect. You are gaining more than you're losing. Of course, I'm only really talking about, or I'm primarily talking about, opportunity costs. You tie up that 400 grand into a car, then you lose the opportunity of income that you could have gotten by investing that money into something that has a return, unlike the vehicle, which is just a liability. So I'm going to talk more about this stuff in the future. I definitely want to talk about exposing all of the scams from these credit card companies, especially how they target young folks that are just graduated out of high school and starting in college. They do some really, really sick and twisted stuff, like qualify you for a credit card when you don't even have a job. that is how much they prey on these young guys that are just starting out life. And they want to put a chain around your neck and lock you down in debt for life. So I'm going to talk about that in future videos. But the final element I wanted to talk about, expose, I'm just a regular person. People look at me and they have all these ideas, but I'm just a regular person like you. I'm basically a product of the decisions that I make. And anyone can choose to make better decisions about how they live their lives. Well, one of the things that I'm bad at is I am not good at paying bills. Now, I know that sounds strange. Why would you not be good at paying bills? Generally, when people talk about issues with paying bills, it's usually because of lack of money. So why does someone who's got money have problems paying bills? Because it has nothing to do with the money. It has more to do with just, I don't know, it's one of my weaknesses when it comes to, like, for example, I a lot of times, like even right now my driver's license is suspended yet again. I've dealt with so many suspensions, and it's not because I go doing a whole bunch of crazy things, but it's just I get a ticket and I just don't pay it. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's $50, like that's gonna hurt me. No, if there was a way to automate paying for my tickets and bills, and maybe that's a business idea, I don't know, I would never have the issues that I have had so many times. And I pay my bills. My bills are paid on time. You saw from the credit report, everything was on time. But the reason for that is because everything's automated. If I had to have the responsibility of paying my bills, it would be just like me paying the ticket. I mean, maybe it's just that I'm overwhelmed. I got too many things going on. I don't know what my deal is, but I just suck with that. So, the point that I'm bringing that up for is because even though I don't have any collections and everything's nice and clean, there was a time, which is not far enough ago that it's completely off my credit. It's still affecting me to this degree. There was a time where I had a bill and I fell behind on it. I was irresponsible, didn't take care of it, and as a result, that ended up being a pretty big hit on my credit. So even though, I mean, that's quite a while ago, so all the activity now is like all positive, green. Dive deep enough, you do see that. Now, the funny thing is, I don't have anything major like bankruptcy or foreclosure or anything like that. But how this credit system is so finicky. I was gonna say finicky that some stupid thing, which is nowhere near even $10,000, that's something that still can be affecting me now. The person who pays their bills on time, has a low debt to income ratio, all this stuff, positive. In a country that is filled with so much debt, people making all kinds of bad financial decisions and all kinds of issues, student loans, I don't have any of that stuff going on. But the fact that I have refused to use credit, and I had one little bill that I let slip, I ended up with a 580 credit score, and even now 700 seems so far away. Meanwhile, I personally know someone who struggling financially, very low income, to the point of they're living in a Section 8, obviously to qualify for that, fairly low as far as on the income side. That person has a 800 credit score, and I think their credit line was something ridiculous like 10,000 or 20,000 or something ridiculous like that. Now, that in itself is another example of how sick the system is. Why would you want to give that amount of credit to someone in that type of situation? Can you imagine if this person is tempted and dips into that just a little bit too much? They are done. They're going to be stuck with that debt for life. Unless they make some major change where they get into a new career or something where they can start making some real money. Yeah, that is so dangerous. But meanwhile, someone who actually can afford to pay stuff, I gotta pay cash. Previously, it was by choice, but now I'm finding out that not so much by choice anymore because I'm being penalized for not using credit. But anyway, I'm working on building that up, and all the techniques that I use and learn, I'm gonna share with you guys. But I'm gonna start financing a bunch of stuff. Like I got the 4C for the channel. I didn't pay cash for that. I did a loan with that, and I'm gonna be doing a whole bunch of other loans as well. Just trying to get that credit up, enable me to make the kind of big moves that I'm looking to move, but they're too big to do the cash thing. I think I've outgrown the cash lifestyle. I'm still gonna be mostly cash, but I need to be able to have a good amount of healthy credit available to me as well, so I can make certain investments. So I'm gonna work on building that up. I'm gonna be buying houses, cars, motorcycles. This is Carlos Picks, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode and you learned something. And if you did, click on the like button, subscribe, smash the bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And until next time, be well. Don't use those credit cards. Actually do, but use them wisely.